There are so many of these reactive loads now on the market that people are a little bit confused to what to buy, but I am kind of surprised to how little real information there is about reactive loads other than, oh, it feels great and stuff like that. So I wanted to make this video in which I'm going to share some information with you which you will not find on any other YouTube video. And you're going to learn something about reactive loads, and you're going to learn something about the products that are available in the market, and you are going to learn something about the relationship between the amplifier and the reactive load, and how different this relationship is compared to an amplifier plugged directly into a real speaker cabinet. So we need to kick this off with introducing you to the impedance curve. Now, the impedance curve looks like this, and you can see that there is a resonant peak somewhere in the low frequencies, and you can see also that the impedance rises in the upper part of the frequencies. This curve is not to be mistaken with this curve, because this curve is something that your microphone essentially hears at 1 meter distance away from the speaker cabinet, and that is a completely different measurement. We are interested in the impedance. Now, why is this impedance important? Well, basically your amplifier is going to see this impedance. Electronically, they're going to dance together. They're going to work together to create a sound. So logically, you can come to the conclusion that when this impedance curve changes, the amplifier is going to start dancing differently. I do this kind of thing while talking about this. But what you just saw is an impedance curve of a speaker. Now, the thing is, when you put that speaker into a cabinet, the whole thing changes. Not only does the frequency of the resonance shift, but also there is a lot of dampening happening, so the amplitude of this impedance can actually also shift. So stuff changes, and it really depends whether it is a ported cabinet, a completely closed back cabinet, an open back cabinet. All this stuff is like very, very different. Now, what do the reactive loads do? Well, they electronically simulate this impedance curve, and it's actually really easy to do, and it's nothing new. It has existed since a long time. They just use some big parts that can take a lot of heat, and they create a device that basically mimics exactly what the speaker cabinet is going to mimic when it's plugged into your amplifier. Therefore, your amplifier is going to see the very fine impedance curve exactly the same like when it's plugged into a real speaker cabinet. But it's not really exactly the same. We're gonna talk about it now. So based on the information that I just gave you, you can deduct that not all reactive loads are created the same, because now you can model the reactive load to model the specific cabinet. Therefore, we have a bunch of these reactive loads that are supposed to kind of sound different. So that's all nice, but then what actually happens is that the speaker impedance curve also changes with the volume. I'm pretty sure that you've been in these situations that stuff just doesn't work until you turn it up, or it actually doesn't really work when you turn it up. It works better at lower volumes. And you know that it's not the amplifier being pushed. It is just simply some stuff aligns. That's because this resonance kind of keeps shifting, and at some point it hits the sweet spot. By the way, if you're interested in this kind of nerding out, I just have the right thing for you, because my first course is out. The Big Muff Pie Demystified on the Slightly Technical Academy is a course in audio engineering. We just do it through analyzing and building a great Big Muff. We do all kinds of analysis, and it's like over 14 hours of ridiculous nerding out content for a ridiculously good price at the moment. So go check that out. But if you're not interested in that, you can go and register in the Academy for free, because there's gonna be a lot of really cool stuff coming out. There's some free Tonex packs and that kind of stuff. And subscribe to the channel. I mean, come on, like the video. We're giving out great information here, and join us when we are live. Or join me when I go live by myself, which is also fun. And now we have to talk about amplifier sensitivity, because not all amplifiers are equally sensitive to these impedance curves. Some are more sensitive, like the Vox, for example. Some are less sensitive, like some amplifiers that have a lot of negative feedback, for example, high watts. And you probably know that from experience. Some amplifiers kind of take different cabinets well, where some amplifiers sort of just work with a certain speaker cabinet and work great, but when you plug in a different speaker cabinet, it's not that great. So I have this really cool engineer friend who likes to be anonymous, but he does a lot of like weird testing and shit, and he sent me over some graphs that I'm gonna share now with you, where we can see how different reactive loads that are on the market react to the amplifier. So if we jump into this graph, we can see that we have a lot of different curves, and don't be confused by this because the different colors are actually representations of different reactive loads. So the green one is the actual fractal audio X load in the US mode, and then we also have the UK mode, and then we have the SIR reactive load and the Freyet power station and the Freyet GPD-IIR and the Rev D20 internal load. And you can see that all of them have resonant peaks at different frequencies. You can see that most of them are bunched around 100 Hertz, going all the way to 120, 150 Hertz. That's about the resonant frequency of the cabinets that we play the most, like the Marshall Greenback, like the Mesa Boogie Oversized, like the EVH Cab, just really popular closed back cabinets. The thing is, if you go and look at the Fractal Audio US mode, the resonant frequency is far lower. That is consistent with open back cabinets. We can also see that the resonant peaks are of different amplitude. That will also tell us essentially how much bass is going to be pumping in this particular resonance. You can also see that there are differences in the high-end spectrum. The only place where we have 8 ohms, which we all know that the speakers are 8 ohms, is around about 400, 500 Hertz. So the speaker is 8 ohms at 400 or 500 Hertz, but at other frequencies, it has a completely different impedance. So how do you actually benefit from all this? Because it's really cool to look at the graphs, but how do you benefit from all this information in practice? Well, the first thing that you benefit from is by knowing that different reactive loads are modeled after different cabinets. And you should go and research that and pick the reactive load that is as close to the cabinet that you're playing as possible. Now, why is that important? Well, it is important because if you, for example, plug your amplifier into a reactive load that is modeled after a Mesa Boogie Oversized cabinet, whatever, and then you use an IR of something that is completely different, you are going to get a little bit of a different response. Now, I'm not in any way saying that you're going to get a bad sound, not necessarily, but it will be different, and this is the explanation why it is different. It can also be a great sound, and it can also be an even better sound than directly plugged into the cabinet. I mean, in the end, it's whatever works, works. But I guess this kind of brings you closer to knowing what's happening and to knowing what kind of product you need to buy or you want to buy, so you're gonna get the results that you wanna get. Another piece of information that is kind of important is that these reactive loads, they don't change, or at least they shouldn't change based on the power that you're putting into them, where the cabinets actually do change dynamically. And this is actually really important for this dance that is happening between the amplifier and the speaker, because this whole thing happens in time and it is live and it changes based on the loudness. And that's why we kind of perceive that yet again, even though reactive loads are super cool and I use one every day, it is kind of different from plugging in an amplifier directly into the speaker. So reactive loads are these ridiculously amazing things. I use one every day, but they're not one size fits all. So based on this information, you can now go and choose the reactive load that you essentially want to buy. But do pay attention to the power rating of the reactive load, because not all companies are super transparent about this whole thing. So don't plug in your 100 watt Plexi Marshall and turn it all the way up. Some reactive loads are not gonna like it. And let me know what kind of reactive load you are using, what's your experience with this, and how did you choose that particular reactive load. And go to the Slightly Technical Academy, go check out my course. If you want to learn about audio electronics, there is no better resource, and it's all full beginner friendly and that kind of stuff. And I'll be seeing you in the next video.